As you can see behind me, we're just coming to the end of lilac season, and if you're lucky enough to have a lilac tree in your garden, I have got the perfect video for you. I'm going to show you how I'm going to arrange some lilacs with some additional tulips in the style of Julia Clements. Now, if you've been following me for a while, you'll know that I have recently bought Julia Clements' book, Fun with Flowers, a treatise on the art of flower arrangement, and I've set myself the challenge of arranging all 86 projects, I think it was, in her book throughout the next year. And so as we come to the end of the spring season, I thought you might like to see a little bit behind the scenes of how I've got on with this project. If you enjoy this video, I would love it if you gave it a thumbs up, leave me a comment, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel. And if you love the kind of videos I've been making, why don't you buy me a coffee? You'll find a link on how to do that in the notes underneath this video. And while you're there, why don't you join my YouTube membership group? And in actual fact, this week we've got a special long version of this video where I'll take you through in more detail how I've completed my spring arrangements. If by any chance you've got a copy of Julia's book that you've picked up from the charity shop, you can now turn to page 36. This little video clip is filmed as live. You'll see my brain working as I'm trying to figure out how to build in 3D life the picture that I'm looking at in Julia's, I must say, her black and white pictures. So it is quite intriguing, arranging in colour but using a reference source that's black and white. So you'll see me here using an old-fashioned ceramic urn, something I've picked up from the charity shop. I'm not using any mechanics, so it's an arrangement, a cut and plonk if you like, into a vase of water. And to enable my lilacs to look as if they are trailing out of my vase, I'm using my shorter stems, which actually have got some movement to them, so they're sort of wanting to wiggle out and do their own thing. So I've picked from a couple of lilac trees, and these shorter stems happen to be a paler variety. And when I went to get some length to my arrangement, actually the stems I use are from a different bush, and they are longer, straighter, but also darker too. And conventionally in flower arranging, we always put the darker blooms to the centre of the arrangement, and then let it sort of wash out with the colour out to the sides and to the top. So you'll see when I finish this arrangement that it might look slightly unbalanced to your eye. But as with all flower arranging, we have to work with what nature gives us. Because I'm not using any mechanics in my vase, you'll see that I do have a little bit of difficulty getting the tallest bit of lilac, the piece I'm positioning now, to stand up exactly where I want it to be. Ideally, I want a sort of a point, a sort of graduation to the top of my arrangement. And because of the heavily blossomed blooms I'm using, they're quite full, quite heavy, and they're wanting to tip off to one side. So it's just a matter, if you're arranging blooms, whether they're lilacs or some other flower, just take your time, take a moment, and don't rush. But the more stems you have, and actually the smaller the mouth on your container, the easier you'll find it is to arrange, because your stems lock more tightly together. And of course, perhaps if I wanted to replicate this arrangement next year, I would actually pack some chicken wire into the mouth of my container first. It's always good to have a look at what you're doing, so you'll see me looking off to the side, looking at my reference guide, and then turning the arrangement round. Do you see what I mean there about the colour division? With the pale stems at the bottom and the darker stems out to the top. Ideally that would have been the other way round, so it went from dark and then graduated out up to the top. But look, I've got some more stems here, and you'll notice with every single one of the stems I don't have any leaves on them. I find it much easier to condition one in terms of the long life of the lilacs is to not have any leaves on them, so that your water is going straight up to the flower heads and not being diverted off to the side. So this is a beautiful massed and mounded arrangement.
have a think what other things you could use if it's not lilac season for you at the moment, and let me know in the comments what you think good substitute flowers would be. Now at this point the arrangement is pretty much done, and I will say absolutely highly fragranced, beautiful, beautiful flowers. And I'm in two minds here about using my tulips. So part of my Julia the flower edit project, well, I'm going to be making each of the 86 arrangements in Julia Clements' book called Fun with Flowers. I am being guided, inspired by the arrangement that she made one summer in the 1950s. Well, I think she arranged them from late spring through to late autumn over the course of probably just several months or so. And this particular arrangement, she included pale pink and purple tulips because she felt that they needed to alleviate the rather heavy effect of the lilacs. And personally for me, when I'd finished the arrangement, I think I would have preferred to have the lilacs en masse and then another vase of my tulips separately. And part of the reason for that is that my tulips stayed straight throughout the life of this arrangement. You probably know that tulips are a flower that continue to grow once cut, and they're phototrophic. They move towards the light. Now my favourite place for displaying my flower arrangements is in my cool north-facing dining room. So I think because the room was cool and it's shaded, the tulips weren't growing towards the light, and also because my vase was absolutely packed with the quite tall lilacs, they were giving my tulips lots and lots of support. So whereas I wanted the tulips eventually to relax, they actually stayed totally upright. But that's just the nature of working with Mother Nature, something to learn for the future. I'm going to let the video run here so you can see me making my arrangement in real time. I think this is such a therapeutic thing to do, someone else being creative and mindful in their creative practice. I don't know whether you belong to a flower club or perhaps have been invited to a flower arranging demonstration by a friend or even been to a flower class, but it is so lovely, I find, watching somebody else make an arrangement, and you can sort of get inside their mind, understand why they're placing things in certain places, why they take things out and reposition them. It's just like watching a sort of mystery unfolding in front of you, and then you get the big reveal to show what the final arrangement looks like. Just need to add 2 more tulips in, but what I'm actually going to do is leave these out of water for a while so I do get that lovely arching drape. So there's my black and white inspiration photo and my finished arrangement. As I mentioned at the beginning of the video, I am going to be publishing a much longer video showing the how I made the arrangements for the whole of the spring season using Julia Clements' book as a guide. So if you'd like to have a little look behind the scenes, all you need to do is click that join button next to the subscribe button underneath this video, and you can watch the full-length version at your leisure.
Thank you so much for joining me on today's video. If you had a favourite of Julia Clements' flower arrangements and the way that I interpreted, let me know in the comments which one it was. And if I've inspired you to go foam free, I'd love to hear about how you're cutting out flower foam from your flower arrangements, and perhaps you've got some great tips that you could share with me. That's all from me for now, and I'll see you again next time.